So that's all troubling, and it's concerning, and it's a little scary, but that's not even the real problem. The real problem is that the value of library collections are rooted in the worth of a local copy. Now let's take a look at that for a minute, local copy. First, it's the predominant value of a library that they offer to the communities. But it's the 21st century. The localness of something loses most of its embodied value when you can retrieve information from Australia in 300 milliseconds. That left side of the image is a ping trace of a packet being delivered to my house in Ann Arbor from the Library of Sydney in Australia. It took 300 milliseconds to do it, and it crossed the Atlantic twice. It went first somewhere in Europe, then it went back to California, and then it went across the Pacific to Australia in 300 milliseconds. Who cares if it's local or not? I have it immediately. But even more dangerous, the copy, the notion of a copy, loses most of its embodied value when there's no longer a difference between transmission and duplication. When you're dealing with digital objects, to transmit it is to duplicate it. And of course, every kid and hacker and all that kind of stuff knows that you can, if you can view it on your computer, you can somehow save it. Or if you know where it is, you'll always have it. And of course, that might change as we have some cloud bursts as things change. So there are already more cell phones in the world than there are toilets. And in this century, most humans are going to have persistent Internet access in their pocket. In an Internet-worked world, when you can download anything from anywhere, the idea of having a local copy only makes sense to a hoarder. And I think that it's very likely the case that in the late 21st century, humans will likely feel the same way about a dust jacket as we currently feel about grandma's slipcovers. The idea of owning a copy of media will likely become as alien and baffling to 21st century kids as we might feel about grandma's Davenport. So, at the same time, there's this issue that there may not always be new material made available in formats that libraries can purchase. This has already started. We had our first request this past week for an item that is not available in print. It's only available on Kindle. There's no way that we can buy it. There are video games for years already that cannot be circulated by a library. This is already happening where the materials are becoming less than available. Or the physical versions of the mainstream titles that are actually produced might be so sumptuous that they provide a compelling experience to prospective purchasers that they're entirely unfit for shared use and circulation. Or the digital products that we are allowed to buy might force artificial constraints on the use that ensure that using the library remains an inferior experience. No digital native is going to get excited about waiting to receive a digital object. And what's the sense in making somebody give something back to you when you still have it even after you gave it to them? Then finally, the user experiences available to people who choose not to bother trying to use a library will only provide increasingly appealing value, which puts us in the situation where all this is happening as taxpayers are having to simply decide what municipal services they can live without. So we're so screwed. Unless, here's my glass half full part, we need to recognize and start thinking about and admit to ourselves that the circulating collection itself as a solution to a problem is a technology that has become outmoded by the Internet and the web and by digital distribution of content. And, it's not going to happen fast as it's not going to happen at the speed that HD DVD has happened or anything like that, because there's a lot of embodied value, and we have to admit that the peak of physical item circulation is near and in some places has already occurred. And as our book carts roll down the long tail, the rapid pace of technological change will give some powerful nostalgia that will keep us being used, but there's going to be a peak, and it's coming soon. And what do we do next? Well, remember what libraries actually used to be for? And here's bonus question number 4. Who knows what library this is? The purpose of libraries when they created were not to purchase commercial content for use by the community, but to store and organize the content of the community. The popular materials have fueled a huge boom for popular libraries, but libraries were created to protect and ensure access to things like this for the communities that produce them, not to subsidize access to the hottest nuclei tablets from Babylon. It's these unique things that don't exist anywhere else and that matter more to our own communities than anyone else that have the future for libraries. The other part of it is that it's not just about the data about the community, but also the creations of the community that libraries can enable by giving patrons access to production tools, event venues, and most importantly, a permanent, non-commercial online home for our patrons' creative works, making the library the publisher, putting the emphasis on the library as a platform for the community, and less emphasis on having enough copies of the hot new thing. So the cat is out of the bag. Everyone is a publisher. To draw another analogy from the wonderful world of outmoded technologies, consider the lost ice house. The publishing industry is making beautiful, professional ice, but we've just entered the age of the home refrigerator. The market for ice and the business of making and selling it, no matter how big and how critical it used to be, will never be the same ever again. So the 20th century brought the world to its community. The 21st century library brings its community to the world. Or, here's some long shots, or maybe we could get a new fair use exemption saying that it is considered fair use for a library to distribute to its patrons content that it had legitimately purchased. We could scan what we wanted. We can distribute it to them. It wouldn't be in violation of the license or anything like that. Yeah, right, that's going to happen. There's so much popular groundswell for fair use and so many people in Congress who are invested in the issue. The other thing that we might do is start negotiating, and this is, of course, the way that the model is currently working, negotiating access licenses to individual titles, but they've got to be unlimited. This one person can use a digital object thing at a time has no future. And with that, our selectors become negotiators. We reap the benefits of the digital format, and publishers get a few big checks on an annual basis from a library instead of lots of little ones from the patrons as they're buying things one piece at a time. Or maybe we might be invited to the party. Maybe Amazon will announce Kindle for libraries, or making borrowing eBooks from your library as easy as buying from the Kindle store. The only question is, why would they do that? I mean, I guess maybe on Bizarro Earth they might do that. Bizarro Bezos say, "Me want to erode revenue stream. It's just right thing to do." So the other thing is that maybe DRM could triumph and everyone's life gets so complicated and full of restrictive licenses that demand for hard copy gets a second wind. Of course, this is happening hundreds of times every day. People are agreeing to restrictive licenses, and nobody's really too concerned about it yet because I don't see that that's going to be a very big break for libraries. So here's the tipping point. It's already done tipped. Circulating collections are an outmoded technology. There's going to be a long decline. They're going to have worth to our communities for a while, but less every day, less every year. And the sooner that libraries invent a future beyond circulating collections and become a platform for unique experiences and a host for unique content, that's our choice. We can become a platform for unique experiences and unique content, or we can ride that long tail off into the sunset. So here are the bonus answers. This is the Liberal Memorial Library in Liberal, Kansas. This is Wallace Stegner, sometimes called the Dean of the Western Writers and winner of the 1972 Pulitzer. The guy that egghead with all of his books was, of course, the most famous egghead of all, Adlai Stevenson. And that library is one of the first libraries now rebuilt, the New Alexandria Library in Egypt. So here are my image credits. Of course, you can get these all later in the download. Still more image credits. And thanks for listening. I'm Ulotrikis on Twitter, and my avatar was made by the wonderful Rich Stevens of Diesel Sweeties. Thanks a lot for your time, and thanks for listening.